When silence breaks, the crystal spires of Nexera caught the morning light like frozen music, their surfaces singing gentle harmonies that drifted across the floating gardens and peaceful valleys below. For 800 years, the Nexeran civilization had known only progress, art, and quiet contemplation. Their cities grew like living things. Their technology flowed like water, and their people had forgotten what fear felt like. Zara Vex stood at her workstation in the Global Communications Center, her six-fingered hands dancing across holographic controls as she monitored peaceful transmissions from across their solar system. Trade reports from the outer mining stations, poetry broadcasts from the artist colonies, scientific discoveries shared freely between research facilities. Everything was normal. Everything was calm. Everything was exactly as it had been for centuries. Until the sky caught fire. The first explosion came without warning, a brilliant flash that turned the morning sky white and sent shockwaves through the crystal spires. Zara's instruments screamed with alerts as unknown ships materialized in orbit, their hulls black as space and bristling with weapons that had no names in any Nexeran database. Emergency protocols activated, the facility's AI announced in its always calm voice. Unknown vessels detected. Defense systems offline. Planetary shields compromised. Elder Voss appeared on Zara's communication screen, his usually peaceful features twisted with confusion and growing terror. Zara, what's happening? Our sensors show massive ships, but they're not responding to any of our greeting protocols. Before Zara could answer, a new voice cut through all communications channels. It spoke in a language the universal translators struggled with, harsh and grinding like metal on stone. Peaceful creatures of this world, you have been selected for integration into the Korthic Empire. Surrender your weapons, surrender your cities, surrender your lives. Resistance will result in complete annihilation. The transmission ended with coordinates locations of every major Nexeran city, every population center, every place where their people lived and worked and dreamed. Elder Voss, Zara whispered, her voice barely working. They're not here to talk. The second wave of attacks began immediately. The Korthic warships moved with terrifying efficiency, their weapons carving through Nexera's peaceful infrastructure like claws through silk. The beautiful crystal spires that had sung for centuries now screamed as they shattered. Gardens that had floated in perfect harmony crashed into the valleys below. Cities that had never known violence became burning scars on the planet's surface. Zara watched the destruction unfold on her screens, her hands shaking as she tried to send distress signals to anyone who might help. The Galactic Peacekeeping Union responded with automated messages about processing her request. The nearby Altarian Federation promised to consider intervention after their next council meeting. The Trade Alliance suggested negotiating with the attackers. Nobody was coming. Zara. Elder Voss's image flickered on her screen as explosions rocked his location. The northern cities are gone. They're taking prisoners, forcing them to watch their homes burn. We need to evacuate the civilian centers, but our transports can't get through their blockade. I'm trying to reach someone, anyone who can help. Zara said, her fingers flying across her controls. The Union says they're monitoring the situation. The Federation wants more information. Nobody's sending ships. Keep trying, Voss said, and then his transmission cut to static as another explosion lit up the sky. Zara stared at her dark screen, feeling hopelessness settle over her like a cold blanket. The Nexamans had no weapons, no military, no way to fight back against an enemy that seemed to enjoy causing pain. They had built their entire civilization on the belief that the galaxy had moved beyond such brutality. They had been wrong. As she prepared to send another desperate plea to the uncaring galaxy, something caught her eye. A blinking light in the corner of her workstation, coming from a console she had never seen active before. It was old, much older than the rest of the equipment, with symbols she didn't recognize and technology that seemed almost primitive. Compared to their advanced systems, she approached it carefully, wiping away decades of dust from its surface. The console was clearly from another era, installed long before she was born, perhaps before her parents were born. As she touched its controls, words appeared on the screen in an ancient dialect of galactic standard. Emergency beacon protocol. Human origin. For desperate use only? Humans. Zara had heard stories about them. Legends, really. A species that had once traveled the galaxy, made contact with dozens of civilizations, established trade routes and diplomatic relations. Then, about 50 years ago, they had simply vanished, withdrawn to their home system, stopped answering communications, ignored all attempts at contact. Most species assumed they had destroyed themselves, or simply decided they wanted nothing to do with the wider galaxy. But this beacon suggested something else. It suggested they were still out there, still listening. The console hummed to life as Zara activated its systems. A message appeared. State the nature of your emergency. Speak. Clearly. Truth only. Zara looked out the window at her burning world, at the Korthic ships that moved through the sky like metal vultures, at the smoke rising from what had once been the most beautiful cities in the galaxy. She thought of Elder Voss, probably dead. Now, she thought of the children in the evacuation centers, crying for parents who weren't coming home. She thought of 800 years of peace, ended in a single morning. She leaned close to the ancient microphone and spoke. This is Zara Thek of Nexira. We are under attack by the Korthic Empire. They are killing us. Our people are dying. The galaxy won't help us because we have no military, no weapons, no way to fight back. We only build things that create beauty, not things that destroy it. Her voice broke. Please, if humans are still out there, if you can hear this, we need help. We don't want to conquer anyone. We don't want to hurt anyone. We just want to live. She released the transmission key and waited. 1 minute passed. Then 5. Then 10. The console remained silent, its lights fading as if going back to sleep. Zara felt tears streaming down her face. Even the humans, if they still existed, weren't going to help. Nexira was alone, and space itself seemed to shiver. Zara's instruments detected at first massive gravity distortions appearing at the edge of the solar system. Not the chaotic signatures of ships dropping out of hyperspace, but something controlled, deliberate, like the universe was being carefully folded and unfolded by an intelligence that understood its deepest secrets. 1 ship appeared, then 3, then dozens. Asterisk. They were unlike anything in Zara's databases, their designs both elegant and terrifying. Sleek hulls that seemed to bend light around them, engines that burned with colors that had no names, weapon systems that her scanners couldn't identify or classify. These ships moved with a coordination that suggested they weren't just a fleet, but parts of a single organism, thinking and acting as one. The Korthic commander's voice crackled across all channels. No longer confident. Unknown vessels, identify yourselves. You are interfering with a legitimate conquest operation. The response came in perfect galactic standard, but with an accent Zara had never heard before. The voice was female, calm, and carried underneath it something that made Zara's skin prickle with recognition of barely controlled power. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Earth Defense Force. You have attacked a peaceful world. You have killed innocents. You have been given warning. You will leave this system immediately, or you will be removed. The Korthic commander laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Earth? The cowering humans who ran away with their tails between their legs? You have 50 ships. We have 300. Leave now, or we will add your bones to our collection. Admiral Chun's response was quiet, almost conversational. "We have 50 ships, yes, but you made one mistake. You hurt people we care about." What happened next defied everything Zara thought she knew about space combat. The human ships didn't charge forward like heroes in the stories. They didn't fire massive energy beams or launch clouds of missiles. Instead, they simply disappeared. The Korthic fleet's instruments went wild as their targeting systems tried to lock on to enemies that were no longer where they appeared to be. Ships that had been in front of them were suddenly behind them. Vessels that looked like they were attacking from the left were actually approaching from above. The humans were using technology that made space itself unreliable. The first Korthic ship to die never saw what killed it. One moment it was firing at what it thought was a human vessel. The next moment it was expanding into a cloud of superheated gas as something struck it from impossible angles with impossible precision. Then the real battle began. Zara watched in amazement as the human fleet moved through the Korthic forces like a pack of wolves through sheep. Their weapons didn't just destroy ships, they dismantled them, taking apart each vessel piece by piece with surgical precision. Korthic commanders screamed orders that made no sense because their sensors couldn't tell them where their enemies actually were. "Impossible," the Korthic fleet leader roared. "What are you? How are you doing this?" Admiral Chun's voice came back, still calm, still conversational. "We learned. While you conquered peaceful worlds, we studied war. While you destroyed beauty, we perfected the art of protecting it. While you spread fear, we became something worth fearing." The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it ended, the Korthic Empire's mighty conquest fleet was gone. Not destroyed in a traditional sense, simply removed as if space had swallowed them. Only one enemy ship remained, damaged and drifting. "You are free to leave," Admiral Chun's voice broadcast to the surviving Korthic vessel. "Return to your empire. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that Earth remembers every species that cries for help, and Earth never forgets those who cause the crying." The last Korthic ship limped away into hyperspace, carrying word of their defeat back to an empire that had never tasted failure. As the human fleet took positions around Nexira, Zara received a direct communication request. She accepted it with shaking hands and found herself looking at a human face for the first time in her life. Admiral Chun appeared older than Zara had expected, with gray streaking her dark hair and lines around her eyes that spoke of difficult decisions and long watches. But her expression was kind, almost gentle. "Zaradek," the Admiral said, "we heard your call. We're sorry we took so long to answer." Zara found her voice. "You came. After 50 years of silence, you came." The Admiral smiled, but there was sadness in it. "We never left, Zara. We just needed time to become something the galaxy could depend on when the darkness came calling. Today, you learned that humans keep their promises, even the ones we never had to make." As the first human shuttle descended toward Nexira's surface, carrying supplies and medical aid, Zara realized that the galaxy had just changed forever. Earth hadn't abandoned them. Earth had been preparing and now Earth had returned. Asterisk the monster. Fleet awakens. The human shuttle landed in what had once been Nexira's central plaza, its hull reflecting the flames still burning in the distance. Zara stood with a group of survivors, watching as the craft's door opened with a soft hiss. She had never seen a human before, had only heard descriptions from old historical records, but nothing had prepared her for the reality. Captain Marcus Stone stepped out first, his boots crunching on crystal debris that had once been part of a beautiful sculpture. He was tall, broader than most spacefaring species, with scars on his visible skin that told stories of battles fought and survived. Behind him came Dr. Elena Vasquez, carrying medical supplies and scanning equipment that looked decades ahead of anything in Nexiran hospitals. "Ma'am," Captain Stone said, approaching Zara with a slight bow. "Are you the one who sent the distress call?" Zara nodded, suddenly aware of how small she felt next to these humans. "I am Zara Vek. I didn't think anyone would come." Dr. Vasquez knelt beside a wounded Nexaran child, her hands gentle as she activated a medical device that immediately began closing the child's injuries. "We always come," she said softly. "It just takes us time to get here." More shuttles were landing across the city, disgorging teams of humans who moved with military precision, but spoke with civilian kindness. They didn't act like conquerors or saviors demanding gratitude. They acted like people who had a job to do and were going to do it right. "I don't understand," Zara said, watching human medics work alongside human engineers who were already assessing the damage to the city's infrastructure. "Where have you been? Why did Earth go silent?" Captain Stone's expression darkened. "That's a long story, Miss Thek, but the short version is this. 50 years ago, we learned something about the galaxy. That changed everything." Above them, Admiral Chun's voice crackled through communicators. "Captain Stone, we're receiving multiple distress signals from across the sector. It seems the Korthik Empire has been busy while we've been watching and waiting." The captain touched his CUM device. "How many, Admiral?" 17 worlds under attack. 6 have already fallen completely. The Korthik fleet is larger than we initially assessed. Over 2,000 ships spread across multiple systems." Zara felt her heart sink. 2,000 ships? But you only have 50. Even with your advanced technology, ... Captain Stone looked at her with something that might have been amusement. "Miss Thek, you only saw a response fleet. The ships that happened to be in this sector when your call came through." He gestured toward the sky, where the human vessels hung like silent guardians. "Would you like to see what Earth has been building while we've been quiet?" The answer came not from him, but from space itself. Reality seemed to bend and twist as massive forms began materializing around Nexera. Not 50 ships this time, but hundreds. And thousands. Each one different, each one carrying technologies that made the laws of physics seem like polite suggestions rather than absolute rules. Zara's instruments couldn't count them all. Her scanners kept losing track, kept failing to maintain locks. On vessels that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The human fleet wasn't just large, it was impossible. "How?" she whispered. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her patient, her expression serious. 50 years ago, we made first contact with a species called the Harvest. They were locusts, essentially. They moved from galaxy to galaxy, consuming everything in their path. Our first diplomatic mission to the Andromeda Galaxy found nothing but empty space where billions of civilizations had once lived. Captain Stone continued the story. The Harvest was coming here. Our scientists calculated we had maybe a century before they arrived, but the galaxy ... the galaxy wasn't ready. Too many species like yours, peaceful, beautiful, creative. Too few with the will or ability to fight something that couldn't be reasoned with. So we made a choice, Dr. Vasquez said. We withdrew. We let the galaxy think we had given up, gone extinct, become irrelevant. But we were actually doing the opposite. We were becoming everything we needed to be to protect everyone we cared about. Above them, the impossible fleet began to move. Ships that looked like they were made of crystallized starlight flew alongside vessels that seemed to be carved from solid shadow. Some ships were so large they had their own gravity fields. Others were so small they could hide in the spaces between atoms. All of them moved with the same coordinated purpose. Asterisk? Every human colony became a research station, Captain Stone explained. Every human world became a laboratory. We took our best scientists, our most creative engineers, our most determined military leaders, and we gave them one mission: make sure that when the darkness comes, we're ready. Zara watched as the human fleet began to deploy across the galaxy. Her communication systems, patched into the Earth Defense Force network, showed her a view of space she had never imagined. Human ships were appearing everywhere, around worlds under attack, in systems where the Korthek Empire had established bases, in the deep space where the alien invaders staged their forces. The Korthek Empire controls 300 star systems. Admiral Chun's voice announced across all channels. They have enslaved 47 species. They have destroyed countless worlds and turned millions of beings into weapons for their conquest machine. Today, that ends. What followed wasn't a battle. It was a systematic dismantling of an empire that had believed itself unstoppable. Human ships that looked like they were made of pure energy surrounded Korthek worlds, their weapons disabling planetary defenses without harming the enslaved populations. Vessels that phased in and out of reality appeared inside enemy strongholds, their crews liberating prisoners and shutting down weapons factories. Ships that moved faster than light itself chased down fleeing Korthek commanders, ensuring that none escaped to rebuild elsewhere. The Korthek Empire had spent centuries perfecting the art of conquest through brutality. The humans had spent 50 years perfecting the art of war through precision. It wasn't even close to a fair fight. "How are you doing this?" Zara asked, watching her screens show impossible victories across dozens of star systems simultaneously. "We learned from everyone," Dr. Vasquez explained. "Your people's mastery of energy manipulation, the Altarian Federation's quantum mechanics, the Trade Alliance's resource management. Every species that ever shared knowledge with Earth, we built on that knowledge. But we added something uniquely human," Captain Stone said. "The willingness to sacrifice everything to protect others. The humans you're seeing today aren't just warriors, Miss Thick. They're volunteers who gave up normal lives, families, entire lifetimes to train for this moment." Admiral Chun's voice cut through their conversation. "All sector commanders, report status." One by one, voices checked in from across the galaxy. Each report was the same. Korthek forces neutralized, enslaved populations liberated, hostile infrastructure disabled. Sector 7 clear. Freeing population of Kepler 442b. Sector 12 pacified. Korthek command structure eliminated. Sector 21 secure. Beginning humanitarian operations. The reports continued for an hour. When they ended, the Korthek Empire, an alien force that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, was finished. Not destroyed with the brutal finality they had shown their victims, but systematically shut down and removed from power. "What happens now?" Zara asked. Admiral Chun's image appeared on the communication screen, her expression thoughtful. "Now, we do what we always intended to do. We go home." "Home?" "But the galaxy needs you. There will be other threats, other empires like the Korthek." The Admiral smiled. "The galaxy doesn't need us to be its permanent protectors, Miss Thick. It needs to be able to protect itself. But it also needs to know that if something truly terrible comes calling, if another harvest appears on the horizon, Earth remembers its friends." Captain Stone handed Zara a small device, its surface inscribed with symbols that seemed to shift and change as she looked at them. "This is a beacon. Not like the old one you found, but something new. If your world ever faces extinction, if evil comes wearing a face you can't fight, activate this. Earth will hear, and Earth will answer." As the human fleet began to withdraw, taking with them the liberated prisoners from dozens of worlds and leaving behind supplies, medical aid, and technology to help rebuild what had been destroyed, Zara realized something profound had changed. In the galaxy, the peaceful species would remain peaceful. The creative species would continue to create. The beautiful worlds would grow more beautiful. But now they all knew something that would let them sleep safely at night. Somewhere in the dark, humanity was watching. Somewhere in the silence, monsters were waiting to defend against other monsters. Somewhere in the vast emptiness of space, Earth's impossible fleet was ready to answer when the innocent cried for help. The humans had kept their promise. They had become what the galaxy needed them to become, and they had made sure that no one would ever have to face the darkness alone again. As the last human ship disappeared into hyperspace, Zara looked up at the stars and whispered, "Thank you." Stars didn't answer, but somehow she knew they were listening. Asterisk.